That's what I need. PRX715XLF covers. $799, $499, sir. It's $150 for a pair. There's gotta be a better solution. Okay, first I need some glue. $1.98 for a 4-pack. Super glue. This is the cheap shit. Next up we need some spray paint. The 99-cent cheap shit. Flat black. Next up we need some boxes. I looked online and the large ones are 24 by 18 by 18. This is the regular one, it's $1.92. But, which is cool, but for this project I think I'm gonna go with the heavy duty one. This is double ply. Alright, so I grabbed some supplies for this project. The total came out to about $10. 2 cans of flat black paint, a 4-pack of super glue for $2, and a couple heavy duty moving boxes. Large moving boxes. 24 by 18 by 18, which is like the closest size to the dimensions of the subwoofer that I'm trying to make the covers for. Hopefully everything will work out alright. Got the supplies, now it's time to do the job. Okay, here's my failed attempt at a speaker cover. What I did is I went to Lowe's, which is like a hardware store, like kind of like Home Depot, and they happen to have these boxes that are 24 by 18 by 18. And this speaker right here is like 23 by 20 by 17. So this was like the closest match. So what I did was I took the box and I painted it black. It actually looks like crap because I used shitty paint. So that's a speaker. I took some glue and I glued the bottom flaps to itself. Used some duct tape to tape the corners. And this is what it came out like. I don't like it. I used really cheap paint. I think that's a huge problem because this cheap paint, it leaves like a little residue, which takes a little while for it to go away. Like a little black paint dust, which I got most of it off, but like it's just not cool. So if anybody out there has that PRX715XLF and wants to do what I just did, first off, you don't need the double ply cardboard box. I would suggest just getting the regular cardboard box. Don't bother painting it. Don't bother gluing it. This thing cost me like $10 altogether, including paint and glue. So if you go without the paint and glue, it's just basically a box and duct tape, and it'll probably run you about $5. Use the medium duty, and you have some protective speaker covers for your speakers. I mean, it ain't pretty, but it's definitely functional. It protects the electronics, it protects the finish. Functional, ghetto, yeah. Like it looks a little ghetto as fuck right now because I should have just left the regular box and not messed with all the other crap. Like I shouldn't have bothered trying to paint it. Painting it actually was a fucking pain in the ass. It took me all day to paint this stupid shit. But hey, learn from my mistakes. Don't mess with the paint next if you ever want to do something like that. Alright, so I did a couple of gigs using those JBL PRX715XLF subwoofers. And here's my personal opinion, my personal view on what I thought of them. They did the job. They're light, but they are definitely not as good as my old 15-plus-year-old Yorkvilles. Well, my old 15-year-old Yorkvilles are supposed to be 700 watts and 130 SPL. These JBLs, they're supposed to be 1500 watts, which is more than double, and 134 SPL. You know, I use my same system that I always use. The only thing different is I swapped out the Yorkville subs with the JBL subs for 2 gigs. And let me tell you, the Yorkville subs put out probably 50% more bass than the JBLs do. They knock so much louder. I was hoping the JBL could be similar, put out some similar output, but it's definitely less than my Yorkville. They're the LS, the 700p model. They're two 10-inch woofers in a bandpass design. So the moral of the story is, specs don't mean shit, unfortunately, because you would think that a subwoofer that's rated at more than twice the power and more SPL, you would think that in real life that it would be at least the same as the older speaker, which was rated at, what is it, like 4 SPL less and 800 watts less. You know, what the JBLs do, they are lighter, which is that one thing, but they also sound lighter. And when it comes to subwoofers, you can't change the laws of physics when it comes to bass. A bigger box is going to get you more bass unless you have a bandpass kind of design, which is what the Yorkville is. The Yorkville has a 6th order bandpass design. And when I tell you, it kicks out significantly more bass than the new JBL 715XLFs. It kicks out significantly more bass. I've worked with the 618 XLF, the older models, but those were 18-inch, and they were up about, they were much bassier, obviously, the 18 over the 15. Especially JBL. Shame on you, JBL. I want to say shame on you, because all these manufacturers, they keep boosting up all the wattage figures and they keep boosting up the SPLs and everything. And when it comes down to it, you go to test the speaker out compared to something that was spec'd out 15 years ago, which I think 15 years ago the specs were a lot more accurate. I think 15 years ago everybody didn't just go on the internet and have the resources to research specs. So what the manufacturers know, that people that are buying speakers today, they have the internet, and the first thing they do is they say, you know what, I'm going to check out the specs. I want to see how many watts it is. I want to see how many SPL is. So what the manufacturers are doing is they're fudging the figures. Let's embellish and make the speaker look better by giving a couple extra SPL and make the wattage look high. It's unfortunate, but specs nowadays don't mean shit, man. Especially with subwoofers. With upper boxes, even then specs don't mean shit, because with the upper boxes, every box has a different kind of characteristic. Some are brighter than others, some are mid-rangey, and you have to really listen to speakers before you can make that determination. And not only do you have to listen to them, but you have to the only way you could really know what a speaker is about is you have to really pound it at a party for about 4 hours, wait for it to get really hot, push it up to its limit, and then you could see how good a speaker is, whether it actually distorts and falls apart, or whether it could keep its composure. So yeah, it's really unfortunate, man. I mean, the JBL subwoofers, they're okay. I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't put out the amount of bass I thought they would. But I got them at a really bargain price, so I'm not going to complain. I'm gonna keep them. I'll probably be using them for most gigs just because the weight. And I don't want to carry heavy loads if I don't have to. And I'm most likely gonna bring those subwoofers over to Yorkville's on most gigs, because I just like I like having to be able to just carry a subwoofer by myself and not worry about hurting your back or anything, like hurting my back or anything like that. So yeah, man, I'd like to say shame on you to JBL for fudging all the specs. Yorkville usually uses bandpass designs, and they use some nice quasi horn loaded, like their big flagship one, the LS801 or something like that. They had for a while, 800p or the 801p. Those things are pretty legendary amongst mobile DJs, particularly the old school mobile DJs, because those Yorkvilles, they put out a ton of bass compared to the competition. The problem is they're extremely heavy. If somebody could figure out how to get a lightweight subwoofer that puts out good bass and somewhat accurate bass, because some bandpass designs don't put out the accuracy, because you're losing out a few frequencies here and there. Certain notes are going to be more prominent than other notes. Do I recommend the JBL PRX715XLF for $1,000 a speaker? Hell no. I don't think they're worth $1,000 a speaker that they're selling for. I think you could get much better than a PRX 715XLF subwoofer. You can get much better for a better price. Because for that kind of money, I would think like an 18-inch, like the EV-ELX 118. But actually, you know what? I haven't really heard those in depth, so I couldn't really comment on those. I'm just going to give you advice on what I've heard. But I would listen elsewhere, see if you could find a better subwoofer. Because for $1,000 a subwoofer, you can get some nice RCFs maybe. Or at least compare the RCF to the JBL before you make your purchase. As far as weight is concerned, there's 15-inch RCFs that weigh even less than the JBL. I think there's like a 50-pound AS 705 MK2 from RCF, which RCF is also a great speaker manufacturer. They're a driver manufacturer, so I'm sure their subwoofers are probably going to knock pretty good. Yorkvilles are good. They still make the 700p as far as I'm concerned, the LS 700p. And as far as I'm concerned, those things are freaking awesome for the mobile DJ. The problem is they're about 90 pounds. The ELX 118p from Electro Voice EV is about 69 pounds, which might be a good trade-off because it weighs a little bit more than the PRX715XLF, but it's an 18-inch. It definitely weighs less than the 718XLF. So I think a good trade-off, if you want the 18-inch woofer, the 18-inch subwoofer, and it's definitely cheaper, much cheaper than the JBL. So a good trade-off would be, a little bit more weight would be the ELX 118p. I would look at that before I make my decision. But I would not recommend this JBL for the price. Thanks for watching. See you next time.